Broadcasting live on the Double Wide Network. It's time for The Real Deal. Join the ambassador and special guest hosts as they put together great guests and honest commentary on a range of issues. One of their main topics will be preserving Native American tributes in sports team nicknames. Also avid fans of music and the arts, and they'll always make time for a great song or two. Now, it's time for The Real Deal. Here's your host, the Ambassador.
Welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Real Deal. We are at the Star Worldwide Networks in the Camelback Towers in beautiful downtown Scottsdale, Arizona. I have my two producers with me, Mr. Kyle Pratt. Hello, Kyle.
How's it going, Ambassador?
Ambassador's all in, and my other lovely producer, the accomplished, the actress, the unbelievable Wendy West is here.
Hello. I missed you last week.
I know. I was
Wow.
I was on the road again.
Yeah?
And then my co-host tonight is the lovely Kinga Andrea. Say hi, Kinga.
Kinga Andrea Johns.
Yeah, Kinga Andrea Johns. It's Kinga Andrea to me.
Okay.
Kinga.
I like that. I'll go by anything.
Okay.
Sounds good. Hello.
She's here representing Green Living Magazine.
Ooh.
And that's a magazine that's locally owned, and they're going to be doing some things here on the show. But they also have an event, ladies and gentlemen, next or Wednesday, May 4th at the Halle Hart Museum on 2929 South 48th Street in Tempe, Arizona, from 5:30 to 7:30, May 4th. So if you're out there, please go by Green Living event and say hi to Kinga and Dory. And I'm going to try to make it there too, because our show gets over at 6.
Perfect. You'll be there? Oh, great.
Chief will be in the house.
Well, then it'll really be a party.
That's for sure.
It starts at 6.
Yeah. Okay. I always want to thank our sponsors, Graves Propane, with offices in northern Arizona. Family-owned business, John and Susan Graves. I've known them for many, many years. Please buy your propane from Graves Propane, serving Native Americans for a long time. Humate International, HUMATE.com. That's my company for your organic needs. If you're a small grower, big grower, and it's also used to feed as a food additive for animals. Our new sponsor is Swisher Air Conditioning. Swisher is friends of mine. They're a big commercial air conditioning company here in the Southwest. They actually work in 30 states, and they're big, and they're also looking for journeymen. They're hiring journeymen, and they do work all in 30 states, but they live here in Paradise Valley, and they've come on to sponsor The Real Deal, and they are donating a unit, one every month, to a low-income Native American family. Isn't that cool?
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And this is it could be on the size of the unit, it can be anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 installed here in Arizona to a low-income Native American family. If you know of anybody, please contact The Real Deal, and that's at yellowhorse.us, and our website is not performing correctly right now, but we got some people working on it. But you can also call The Real Deal at 602-540-3000. Download the new app, right, Kyle?
That's right.
Yep, we got to download the new app for all the bells and whistles, and you'll be good to go on Star Worldwide. Did you see the pictures of the filming crew?
I did.
Yeah.
Looks like you're having a good time out there.
Oh, yeah, I was rocking and rolling. Did you see them, Kinga?
I didn't. I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, I'll send them to you. I had to go to New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I went up there and met with them. They come in from Beverly Hills. This is the 4th time they come in filming me. And we went to Winter Rock, and they filmed Peter McDonald, who I told you about, and at Winter Rock at the Navajo Nation Council Chambers. And then they also filmed me there, and we went into a traditional Navajo home, which is called a hogan. And that's a great story, what he talked about that. And so you'll be listening to that. Thanks to all of our listeners all over the country, Native Americans, all Americans, coast to coast. And I want to thank all of our listeners in Lancaster, New York, Wilmington, Delaware, Neshaminy, Pennsylvania, Goshen, Indiana, and North America and Europe. We're making new friends all the time. Also want to thank our listeners at Channel 3, 5, and 15 here in Phoenix, And the number one anchor, my buddy Jamie Soretta, she's listening. Thanks for listening, Jamie. And she's on every Saturday and Sunday morning from 5 to 10 a.m. on Channel 3. I also want to shout out to the American Indian Center of the Great Plains, which I am a partner of, Johnny Lerner. He's going to be on the show here in a little bit. So we're going to have him in talking about these Cheyenne Arapaho. And I always like to say hi to my Navajo brothers and sisters, Yate, Hastin, Dennis Yellowhorse, Jones, and Che. Thank you for listening. Akehe. And now I'd like to have my Che, Peter McDonald, address the Navajo people, if you would.
Yate, shahas tui sezane, setelke, sheje kent neshike, no kliniki, o shidi Peter McDonald, dashilne, aska zahon slobet, ani bashishin, ado tsakane, dashinale, ashi dashiche, totich in eba setta, shada halya, kododi, nini, eba hanne, no, kodoy, ambassador, Dennis Yellowhorse niji yaltijo yolwol. Akoda nini be edeba hanne the real deal wol yeo. Jo koe hashine la ne sezi yadal ti lahoda ba lahoba lahadal no. Die do kot eda. Ebni na hada kisigi kodo the real deal no. Yahal negi dida nini. Jo edeba honne. Ako ikena slagi sto banda yosni to banda notra Graves Company will yov la shibe da no Sunday da jo kodo kwishi without di ikena sla kodo kwichi na long kodo ni yati.
Did you understand that, Kinga?
Every word. It was very interesting.
You want to be a Navajo code talker? Now, isn't that cool though?
Absolutely, so cool.
Our listeners have just gone off the wall contacting with us. And now I also have a business associate of mine, Mark Burr. Him and I are associates with Jay Stryker out of New York, and that's one of the 4 big market makers. And he was in the show, and I always want to say something to our listeners in California, southern Arizona, northern Mexico, New Mexico, where they lost their native language, Kinga. They don't speak Navajo or they're Pimas or Tohono, and they don't speak their native language. Most of their native language is gone, so their language of choice now is Spanish. So we're going to have Mark say something to those folks.
Claro que sí, don Dennis. Nuevamente, bienvenidos a nuestra audiencia de hispanoparlantes y a todos nuestros patrocinadores, Graves Propane de Flagstaff y YouMade Internacional de Gallup, Nuevo México, y a todos los radio oyentes a través de la nación y del Real Deal y nuestro anfitrión, el embajador.
Thank you, Mark. How do you like that, Kinga?
I love it.
We know what we're doing around here. Okay, I always want to mention all the teams and all the fans of all the teams that honor Native Americans. Kansas City Chiefs, Washington Redskins, Golden State Warriors, Atlanta Braves, Cleveland Indians, Chicago Blackhawks for listening and honoring Native Americans by using the names. And we also want to thank you for all the email and the letters of support from the fans of the teams. We appreciate it very much. Star Worldwide Networks, ladies and gentlemen, is the largest, fastest growing internet radio station in the country. 200 shows. They just topped 6 million listeners. 6 million, wow. Ladies and gentlemen. Kyle, tell our audience, what's the number one show at Star Worldwide?
That's the real deal.
That's right! We deserve it. We absolutely deserve it.
Number one.
So you're at number one here, Kinga. Now I want to mention there was a student poll. Wilmington, Delaware is under fire. And right as we speak, they're in a school board meeting in Wilmington, Delaware, right as we speak right now, fighting to keep their name, the Wilmington Redskins, the Conrad Redskins. It's been that way for 80-some years. Same thing. Name changers went over there. It's bad. Change it. Chiefs are bad. Indians are bad. All these names are bad. You got to change them. And there's a student poll in Wilmington, Delaware regarding the name of the Redskins, Conrad, by Jesse Schuhart. And the poll was overwhelming, ladies and gentlemen, overwhelming in support of keeping the name Conrad Redskins. Let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, this is social and cultural genocide to Native Americans. This is what was done in Germany to the Jewish people. They burned the books, get rid of the race, and in 100 years, Native Americans will just be Americans. And that's why when these filming crews come in, these people that are paying them, these are big movie producing companies out of L.A. And all those guys are Jewish. They're all Jewish.
So they get it.
They get it real quick, Kyle. When that's why they're here.
Yeah.
They get it real quick what's coming down the pike. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go take a short break. Kyle, I want you to get the Real Deal Airlines fired up. Call the pilots. Tell them to kick the tires, light the fires, and take us to Kansas City. Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I have a special guest that's going to be coming on here. He's my business partner at the American Indian Center of the Great Plains. His name is Johnny Leonard. He grew up there. He's Cheyenne Arapaho, and how I met Johnny was actually through the Kansas City Chiefs. The vice president, Bill Chapin, tied us up together several years ago, so we've been best buds ever since. Johnny, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Well, we're rocking and rolling in Scottsdale.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you real good.
Okay, great.
How's things in Kansas City?
Oh, pretty good. We've finally gotten some rain, which we hadn't had rain in forever. It was probably the mildest winter I've ever experienced here. I think it snowed one time, and it never got below 30, but maybe a couple of times. So it's been no winter.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's here. We don't have a winter, but it'll get a little chilly here in Scottsdale. But up in New Mexico, where I just returned from, the pictures I sent you, it was snowing up there.
Well, it looked pretty nice up there, though.
Yeah. It'll snow and then the sun will come out and it'll get real nice. But that's just the high desert in Gallup, New Mexico, where I grew up, and that's where we produce our Humate. Johnny and I are going to be launching a big campaign with Humate in Kansas City with my company, and we're going to be, the American Indian Center is going to be representing Humate International, and we're going to be supplying Humate to the people of Kansas City and the surrounding areas, including the tribes. So that's one of the big things we're going to be doing. Johnny, what's happening with the Dorado?
Oh, the Loretto?
Loretto, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine. We're still working through some of the due diligence. Big project like that takes time, and
right.
And it's 10 acres in an old school that's 110,000 square feet. So there's a lot to look through and a lot to go through. EPA, in one of the lots they had a filling station, and so they're doing the ground testing now to make sure that there wasn't any leaks from their gasoline tanks right now this week. So
right.
But everything's going pretty good. We're excited. Just being patient. That's the only way. Good things come to those who wait.
That's true. Yep, that's for sure. Tell our listeners some of the things you've done in conjunction with the Chiefs there at Arrowhead to promote the Native American imagery.
Well, what we've done, we started 2 years ago with a partnership with the Chiefs. I think at that time the Washington Redskin thing was at its height. The season was getting to start, and there's a lot of people. It was always in the news. That's all you heard about. And ever since I coached at Haskell, I always thought, why hadn't anybody, and Haskell's an Indian school. I imagine a lot of your listeners, if they're native, have heard of Haskell here in Lawrence.
Right.
And I said, why hasn't anybody talked with the Kansas City Chiefs and had them help because of the imagery that they use, and the ownership there has always been pretty good when it comes to minorities. I thought, they were the first to start drafting a lot of African American players back in the mid '60s, and I thought, why hadn't anybody talked with them? And the attitude was, F the Chiefs. They should be talking to us. They should stop doing this. They shouldn't be doing that. And I've always been of the opinion that, there's a compromise, and you need to talk to where everybody wins. And so when I approached Mark Donovan, he was pretty apprehensive when we first met, but we talked and we went through a number of issues that the local natives have here, and how to address those. And a lot of the issues that natives have, Dominant society, they don't know anything about it.
Right.
They don't know, and when you're ignorant, ignorance is the worst because you don't trust it. You're not able to see that side until someone sits down and explains it to you. And so that's what we've been doing, and we've made great progress here. In fact, one of the things I'm really proud of, Dennis, is that after our second event that we had, we've done it 2 years in a row. We've had color guards from probably 30 tribes have been represented at these events. Right after we did ours, the Oklahoma City Thunder of the NBA, which is right in Indian country,
Sure.
they finally did a recognition of Native American Month at one of their games. And I thought, a lot of the word had started to get back to the group down there, because we did have a lot of tribes from Oklahoma participate in what we were doing here at Arrowhead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been real proud about that, and we continue to have a good relationship with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you guys are coming in town in a couple months, and we're setting that up so you can film out at Arrowhead. And
yeah, we're going to film right on the field, you and I.
Yeah, well, I've talked to a couple of the Chiefs that are Native American. Tyler Bray is citizen Band Potawatomi. He's second string quarterback right now. And James Winchester, who's Choctaw, who played at the University of Oklahoma and played with Sam Bradford as the long snapper.
Mm-hmm.
We talked with them about what we're doing, and they're excited about working with us. And I'll try to have both those guys available when you guys come up to film.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Dennis, there was something I wanted to talk about that I thought was relevant to the Redskin deal, and it was brought to my attention a couple of days ago. My girlfriend Sarah was watching this show on Netflix written by Tina Fey. It's called The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and I think it's a good show. I enjoy it. We watched the first season. We've been binge-watched. I think you can binge-watch it again. But gist of the show is that one of the characters, her parents are Native American. And I thought that was cool. And what happens is that their daughter, we didn't know that until we were like 3 or 4 episodes into the show, but her daughter has more or less rejected being Native.
Really?
Hair, lives like a rich white lady.
Mm-hmm.
And this past episode, Sarah said, in fact, she texted me and she said, "What's the deal with Lone Star Dietz not being Native?" I go, "What?" And she said, "Well, in the show it said that Lone Star Dietz pretend to be Native in order to avoid the draft."
Okay. Right.
So I got interested in that because I had not heard that. All the information I had heard about Lone Star was when I was a little kid that he was Native, that he coached a very famous coach, played for Pop Warner, did a lot of things that I was real proud of because of him being Native, and I understood he was Sioux.
Right. Tell our audience who Pop Warner is.
Well, Pop Warner is the coach. He was the coach at Carlisle, and he was Jim Thorpe's coach.
Carlisle's an Indian school, ladies and gentlemen.
Indian school, right. Indian school, and this is where Lone Star Dietz played. And, we're talking right around the turn of the century.
Right.
So, long time ago. And I thought it was interesting that here we are, about 100 years removed. This Lone Star's been dead since 64, I believe, 69, something like that. And then all of a sudden you hear his name, and he's being besmirched as not being Native American.
Right.
So I contacted a couple of people that just as luck would have it, we were talking, and they told me about what information they had. And so they sent that to me, and I looked through the court records of 1919. And I also did some other looking online, and there was an article by the Washington Post writer and one by John Barr of ESPN, and both of those also said that the lady who was his mother said that the father had gone and got an Indian baby and brought it back to her after hers was stillborn. So, if you were to read through the court records and then you hear what was said outside of that, I mean, a person could almost go either way, to be quite frank with you. And I think when people go to an extent that the one group has gone to besmirch Mr. Dietz, that they have an agenda.
Absolutely.
And, and I hate to see one of our heroes or icons or some native that really did some good back in the time when it was hard to be native. And you got to keep in mind, this guy's telling everybody he's Indian at a time when Indians probably weren't the most likable group, or at least really frowned upon a lot more back then. So my thought was, I'd like to do something about it. Well, Sarah, being smart, which obviously I'm not, she said, well, let's do a DNA. She goes, if there's something that we could get DNA from Mr. Dietz, that would put an end to it.
Right.
And so I've called and I talked to this group about finding if he had a son or if he had a daughter from his second wife or whoever. I know his first wife was Native American. I said, if we could find out, let's just do a DNA test. And as luck would have it, and this is how some things work, is that Nancy Blue, I think, who you've talked to.
And she's been on my show, yeah.
She does genealogy for Native Americans. And what we were talking to a couple of labs that do DNA testing. And the reason for that is that a lot of these people, Elizabeth Warren, for one, says that they're Native American. And I'm saying, let's set up a program here at the American Indian Center to where people who feel that way can come in, be DNA tested, because it will show what percentage that you are Native. I think there's 3 that they can find, African, Caucasian, Native American. I think there's Asian maybe, but they can tell, and they can tell what percentage. And my thought is let's find out. I'm going to talk to one of the labs that we're talking to see if they would sponsor doing the DNA test for us, so we'd know once and for all whether or not Lone Star Dietz was Native American or not.
Right.
And that's not too hard to do. It's not like they're looking at dinosaur bones trying to figure out. And so that's going to be one of the things that we're going to do here at the American Indian Center.
That's great. That's a great idea.
Because I think, it's not my idea. That's Sarah. She's, like I said, she's pretty sharp.
Now, she's the one that works with Uber?
Yeah, she's one of the designers at Uber.
Right.
And so naturally she would think of something scientific, and here I am running around trying to
Well, I always thought he was Native American, but because he went to the school of Carlisle, and you got to be a Native American to go to that school. And for our listeners, he was also a coach for the Washington Redskins. And when the Washington Redskins were initially called the Boston Braves, and they moved to Washington D.C., and their logo was a big R, a big red R on their helmet. And the owner of the Redskins at that time, I think his name was George Marshall or George Herman Marshall.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he somebody told him, I think it was Lone Star Dietz, said, we need a Chiefs logo. We need a really nice logo of a chief to put on the Redskins helmet. And so he said, well, make one up, and so they ended up going to the Blackfeet Indian Nation in Browning, Montana. And if you listen to our first show, ladies and gentlemen, it's called The Premier Show, you'll hear Robert Dorr, who is an enrolled registered member of the Blackfeet Nation from Browning, Montana. He come on my first show, and he talked about how they drew the logo amongst the tribe up there in Blackfeet in Browning, Montana, and they shared it with all the elders and everybody commented on it and changed it a little bit, and then they approved it, and that's the logo that's on the Washington Redskins helmet. The Redskins, like the Kansas City Chiefs, as you know, and these other teams, they don't have mascots, and that's a big phony BS scam that these name changers try to say, they got a mascot. They're not mascots, they're logos. But these idiots try to fool people into believing that these are mascots. Well, there's no mascot running around Arrowhead or FedEx Field. They're logos. And it was respectfully done, and that's what's on the helmets today. It wasn't done by Dan Snyder. It was done by them, and I think it's very respectful myself, just as the logo on the Chiefs jerseys are very respectful, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I've never thought that there was anything derogatory about that when I was a little kid, and almost every Native kid that I ran around with, we root for the Washington Redskins because we knew we weren't going to beat John Wayne.
Right, that's right.
And so no, I never looked at it. I was always proud of it.
Well, so I'm proud of it, and my wife, who passed away 6 months ago, was a Navajo, very prominent Navajo, Jane Yellowhorse. She was very proud of those names, and she told me to keep this show going, and that's why I'm doing it. But and I'm not a Navajo. I never claimed to be a Navajo. But when you're married to a Navajo, you're a Navajo.
Right.
And that's
it's funny, thinking back now, because my mother was real instrumental in getting Little Red off the sideline there at OU. She was always proud of that.
Sure.
And it was a logo. See, there's a big difference between the Redskin logo and Little Red dancing around on the sideline for a touchdown.
Right.
And some of those things I do. I kind of feel a pit of my stomach just kind of turns when I see when they have used to have a guy hit a home run and Nakahoma or whoever get out and do a dance. And my mother always said that just reminded her of the organ grinder. The white people play the music and the little monkey gets out there and dances, and we were the little monkey at the time, and she really resented that, and I understand that, but that's back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Right then, but we're in a new century, and I don't see any mascots at the professional level running around out in the field, or especially on the sideline at the Chiefs game or at the Washington Redskins game.
Right. Well, that's why you and I and the American Indian Center of the Great Plains, we're gonna use this show and the American Indian Center as a facility to educate folks.
That's the only way I've ever thought that things change in a positive way. In a positive way. In fact, I got this report from the Colorado. You remember there was a big deal. They were going to do this big report out in Colorado, and they did. I got a copy of it. Here's about 32 pages long, and the gist of it is says they've got to go. But I was reading the letter here from the president or the chairman of the Ute tribe, and he very briefly had, maybe that they should go type thing. But then he goes on for 2 paragraphs explaining that this is a golden opportunity to educate the public about the culture and the people and traditions. And that's what I'm saying. And I've always said it, and ever since you've met me, and I think that's what allowed us to work with the Chiefs, is because I didn't tell the Chiefs, you need to quit doing this and you need to quit doing that. I just said, this is why we're doing this, and there's things that we can do to work together, and there's some things that your fans need to be educated on. And once they're educated, I guarantee you they're going to stop doing some of the stuff that they've been doing.
That's the key.
It is.
And when the Kansas City Chiefs come down here to play the Arizona Cardinals a year or so ago, you had about 7 or 8 of these name changers down here carrying these professional signs. They weren't handmade signs. They were very professional, done by Hal Britter. He had air-conditioned buses taking them here or there. So they have them down here, and it was hot. It was very hot. And it was 100 degrees out. And they had these professional signs saying, "I'm not your chief. I'm not your chief." And so somebody went over there and asked him, and they says, "Well, okay, I get it. You don't like Redskins, and now you don't like Chiefs, but what about the word police chief? Is that racist?" "Oh, yeah, that's racist, yeah." "Well, what about the word fire chief? Is that a racist name?" "Oh, yes, absolutely, that's racist." "Well, what about the word commander-in-chief? Is that racist?" "Oh, yeah, that's racist. We got to change that." I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, these people are so warped out with this political correctness BS. It's just sickening.
It's not even politically correct. I mean, there's nothing politically correct about what they're doing. I don't understand what the benefit is. I read all these reports that they've done all these, but every Indian I talk to, they say no. All the people I brought up to the Kansas City Chiefs game from all over Oklahoma, from all different tribes, I've asked them. They said no. There's nothing wrong with that. We're proud of that. That's why we like coming up here. That's why we're here.
Right.
And the thing is, I don't understand. And politically correct to me is just it's a cover for a lot of things.
All right, it is. It's a cover for these people's own mission statement.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. No, I don't want to be politically incorrect, but here's it, and it's like, to me, it's just respect. Just respect the other person, and respect what we want to do, and that's all I ask from the Chiefs. Is because I know that in the past, people who've gone to the Kansas City Chiefs have gone to them, just like they have the Washington Redskins, telling them what they should stop doing and why they're disrespected and all that. I understand the frustration and anger builds up over centuries of what we as a group had to endure. But again, we're in a new century, and there's better ways to do things, and people will listen to us. And the best way to do is lay out what they don't know. Those people do not know, and I bet a lot of Indians don't know the meaning of the headdress, the drum, and some of the other things that we do, because each tribe is different.
Right.
Not everything's the same. We do certain powwows one way in the north. We do the same powwow, but it's done a little different in the south. And there's so many different things. You can't lump everything in together. And I think one of the problems that I told the Chiefs that I saw, that all the regalia and all the stuff that the icons that they use, those are from the Plains Indians. Those aren't from the Seminole or Mohican or Oneida or any of those. All the stuff, the headdress, the drums, all the stuff early on was all Plains Indian. And I think one of the things that I think would be beneficial is like some of these schools that you've been telling me about that are being approached by the group up there to change their logo and all that.
Right.
I would look, and in fact, I did see one, and I thought, you know what? I would change that logo. The logo is of a Plains Indian, and you're from New York. It should be an Huron, a Algonquin, an Iroquois, Mohican, some tribe that's indigenous to your area, and then tell the story about that and why we should be proud of that. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I said, "Do you know that the documents that the Mohican and the Iroquois, I'm trying to think who, I think it was the Iroquois Nation, they used that as a template for the Constitution of this country, and that's something people didn't know, but most historians who study the Constitution in that area, they know that was I'm trying to think what they called that. It was the Constitution of the Confederacy of the Iroquois Nation or something, but it was something that the Founding Fathers used as a template to write the Declaration of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Right.
And that's not taught in school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's a whole wealth of information out there if you go try to find it.
But that's just it. It's easier to call.
It's easier to play the race card, isn't it?
Yeah, it's easy. In this day and age, it's easy. Oh, that's racist. Oh, that's a bigot. Oh, that's just. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't take anything. It's like we were talking to the Chiefs. Mark Donovan, they're very. They were walking on eggshells when they started this because they didn't know what to expect. But it was accepted pretty mildly by everybody. Everybody got along, and in one meeting he said, we just looked at every word that we put out, everything, because we don't want to be attacked, but you can attack anything.
Right.
And I said, yeah, you can attack a ham sandwich.
That's right.
This ham is too thick, or the bread is too hard, or, there's always something that you can say, but you can't be afraid to do something. And that's where I am. I'm not afraid to go out there. And a friend of mine, he said, John, he goes, I don't want my name on it. If it's going to be this. And I said, you know what? Your name's not on it. Mine is. The American Indian Center of the Great Plains, that's the name that's on it. And we're going to move forward. And everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's 100% right. And, we've probably made mistakes, but we're still at the table with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's what we're doing. And we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to expand our program. We're hoping to work with the Nelson Atkins Museum in November for a program there.
Right.
So.
No, that's good. That's good. I commend you for doing that. And as soon as we get everything put together, I'll be coming to Kansas City with the filming crew, and maybe even before that, and we can start working on the American Indian Center that I'm involved in, and I'm really excited about that as well. I want to get you remember the guy that we had on a couple months ago? He's the one that talked about how the Chiefs got their name.
Oh yeah, Richard.
Yeah, Richard Lanow, right?
Yeah, Richard Lanow.
Yeah. I want to get him back on. He was a great guest, and he's a Native American. Yeah. And he talked about how the Chiefs got their name, and and I didn't know it, and it was really cool. The Chiefs were the Texas. What were they?
Dallas Texans.
The Dallas Texans, right?
Dallas Texans, and they were from Dallas, Texas, and the Dallas Cowboys were right there, and so Lamar knew that one of them had to leave, and so
right. This was Lamar Hunt, ladies and gentlemen, with the Hunt Oil family, billionaires, and so what he had said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the mayor at that time of Kansas City flew down there to meet with him because he was moving the team, but he didn't know where he was moving it. So he moved it. He went down there and met with him, and he says, "Hey, why don't you come up and check out Kansas City?" He says, "We're not just a cow town. We got a lot of interesting stuff going on up in Kansas City." So Lamar Hunt went to Kansas City, and he spent several days or maybe a week or something with the mayor, then the mayor at that time. And he was so overwhelmed with Kansas City, he says, "I want to move the team to Kansas City." And so when he moved the team to Kansas City, he says, "Well, we can't call it the Texans because it's not Texas anymore."
Right.
So I guess they kicked it around for a day or two. And he says, "I know what we'll call it." And they both agreed, let's call it the Chiefs to honor Native Americans. And that's how the Chiefs got their name. It was really interesting. I mean, that was it was an interesting story that I did not know anything about.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, and you hear again, even when you hear the story and you know it's correct, people out there, they attack it. They say, "Oh well, it's still racist, it's still this, it's still that," and it's not. It's not. I think what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing now, they've been progressive in trying to do the right thing. They're doing the right thing now, in my mind, and they're going to continue to do the right thing. It's always been a pleasure to work with them. They've been real nice to us. We've hopefully have educated them, as like I said before in one of your previous shows when I was on, that Mark Donovan, the president, he said, "Johnny, we never really noticed that until we started talking with you, and now," he says, "we see that all the time, and it's like a beacon." He goes, there's one, and we notice that as the season has worn on, and the more that you're able to disseminate the information, see, they give us a booth out there to pass out information about the address and stuff.
Right.
At the end of the year, I had Gary Johnson, who's part of our working group. I think he was on your program at one time.
Right. Yeah, I've talked to him.
I said, "You guys count," and Richard Lanow and Gary, and at the end of the season, they counted 13. 13 out of 80,000 people.
Right.
So I think what the Chiefs will, my hope is, on their own, that they make the decision to go ahead and just say, this is no longer allowed in our stadium. And they could do that, and we've accomplished something that no one's been able to do in the last, ever since they've been in existence. And it's all good. It's all positive. And I'm hoping that they'll eventually come to that conclusion, but that has to come from them. That can't be me telling them this is what you need to do. They have to decide that themselves.
Right.
And when they do that, now you're talking real change. That is real change.
Right.
So,
Johnny, we're going to take a short break, and I want you to stay on the line, will you?
yeah, I can hang on for a little bit.
Yeah, Kyle, you know what the problem with these name changers is?
You can't handle the truth.
We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. That was Tina Turner with my friend Lisa Fisher. I met Lisa Fisher. She sings with the Rolling Stones. I met her here in Phoenix years ago, and she's an accomplished singer, and if that don't set you free, nothing will. Johnny, are you still on?
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
Okay, buddy. Tell our listeners about about Jim Thorpe and his siblings, how you had him on at the stadium.
Oh yeah. Well, part of the event that we had this past fall in October, Indian month at Arrowhead, was that we had a dinner, and we had Robert Wheeler come in and his wife, And Bob Wheeler is really good friends with the Thorpe family. And so we had Bill Thorpe come in, and he kind of got stuck because of the flooding. I guess they're having flooding again down in Houston, but in Dallas they had to shut down the airport because it was raining so bad.
Right.
A day late, but he came in and was the special guest of the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was out on the field with Tony Gonzalez as they concluded the festivities of the Native American month. And I've known Bill for, 8 or 9 years. And I knew his brother Jack. And it's funny, we were talking one time. I called Bob, and he said, well, let's meet. So we met down in Shawnee, Oklahoma at one of the area offices where Jack worked. And we were only going to talk for maybe an hour. And Dennis, I was down there for almost 6.5 hours.
Really?
We talked, and they knew my mom because she was chairman.
And tell our listeners what tribe she was chairman of.
Was the chairman of the Cheyenne Arapaho tribe.
Right.
And she was involved in tribal politics almost her whole adult life. And I remember when I was a little kid, women weren't allowed to vote in our tribe. And Mom, at the time, was probably around 22, 23. She wanted to know why.
Right.
Well, as time goes along, next thing you know, she's tribal chairman. So, but she loved being Native American, loved her people, and it's interesting. I think I never lived on a reservation. I was always in public schools, but I was out on the reservation a lot though, and sometimes it's really hard out there, and I know that.
Oh, it is, yeah.
But that's no reason that we can make things better, and I make things better for everybody. Everybody wins.
Right. Well, that's why this show's so important to me, is to have people like you come on, and as you know, my wife was a Navajo, and I moved to Gallup, New Mexico from Maryland. We lived outside of Washington, D.C. when I was 7 years old, and I was put in school, and 95% of my classmates were Navajos. Huh. And so I'm here, and I'm just a kid, and it didn't bother me at all. I mean, I didn't know I was just too young, but I adapted to it, and they were my friends.
Yeah.
So pretty soon I'm going out to the res and staying with them, and staying in hogans, and eating their traditional Navajo food, and that's where I learned how to speak Navajo, because they would talk to me in Navajo, and I'd say, "What's that mean?" And my buddies would say, "Well, she's asking you want some more bread, or you want something to drink, or you need to go to the bathroom or something," and so I was young enough to pick it up and pick up the language, and then I just went from there. And that's when I said, I like these people so much. They're so cool. When I grow up, I want to marry a Navajo, and I did. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. But you're right. Life was tough. I mean, but Native Americans adapt. Navajos are resilient people. And they'll haul their water 50 miles. They won't complain. I mean, that's just because of the type of people they are. And Native Americans, for the most part, I'm sure, are that way as well from the other tribes that I've met. But it was just the luck of the draw that I got thrown out there in those schools in Gallup, New Mexico, and that's where I grew up.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Well, everybody has a story, and how they got to where they are. And a lot of these stories are interesting. It's hard to put yourself in other people's shoes, but I knew growing up when we went out there to the reservation, I knew, and my mom even told me, she says, you need to count your blessings, because you're coming home to a nice place with electric lights, and a lot of your cousins, they don't have those, and you just need to remember that, and I have remembered that. Mm-hmm. I know it's tough out there for natives on the reservation, and I wish it wasn't, but it is. But we can make it better.
Right.
There's a lot of things that I want to do when we get started that are very important to me, and autism is one, and then the abuse that women get out is another thing that I've heard a lot about, and I'm glad my sisters weren't ever involved anything like that, because that's no way to live for anybody.
Right.
But there's programs that we're going to be working on, and I look forward to you coming up. And
I will. Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, because I'm running solo now, as you know, so there's nothing to really hold me back, and I look forward to coming up there and helping you and expanding my businesses in the Kansas City area, because as you know, my product is not readily available to anybody unless you buy it from me. And I've had so many people from around the country saying, "Where do we buy this Humate, Humate?" And I said, "Well, most of my stuff goes out of the country. It goes to South America and over in the Far East." So I'm looking forward to coming up there and really helping you. And then,
we're looking forward to that. That would be a good business for us to be involved with you in, because we got a lot of farmers up here. A lot of people have livestock, and I understand that that's stuff that those guys, the livestock can eat, can't they?
Right, yeah. We've been endorsed by the largest organic milk company in the world, Organic Valley, out of Lafarge, Wisconsin, and they've flown their veterinarians into Gallup and went out to my plant, and I've met with them. This is several years ago, and they endorsed me and wrote letters and tell all their dairymen to feed it to their animals, so it's all good. So we're going to do that. Johnny, we're at the end of the show. But I really appreciate you coming on, because my listeners want to hear from people like you.
Well, Dennis, what I'd like, I've been on the show a few times. I listen a lot. Why don't you bring one of those name changers on there so we can find out exactly what they're shooting for? Because
I've invited them on, and
not give me an answer that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. What's the end game?
Well, there's got to be a plus, why? But then it's not that hard. Yeah, this is what we plan to accomplish by eradicating every Native American logo and name in the country. I don't get that.
Yeah, where do we go from here after that?
I don't get it. And one of the things, I know we're running short on time, but one of the things that Mark Donovan said that I told everybody, I said, if the Redskins change their name and that's what you wanted, well, then you're done. There's no reason to talk to you. There's no reason to we don't have any more business. And that's it. You lost your seat at the table. My way is that, yes, this is what upsets me, but let's fix this, and let's continue to work together to educate people in years to come. And so the Native American and that story about Bartle and all that stuff isn't forgotten. It's still living, and it's now. And that's how I look at the Washington Redskins. That, to be quite honest with you, I don't think they've handled their PR very well, and I think you probably agree with that.
Right.
But Snyder he hasn't buckled. And it's really not too late for them if they were to listen to common sense. I've contacted them a few times, but I only get so far. And I have asked the Chiefs if they would be offended by that, and Mark Donovan said, well, no, we wouldn't. It's a sister franchise, and he goes, I think that they would be better off if they did talk to us and mapped out a real way of going instead of what they're doing right now. And I tell you what, I'm really disappointed in how they've handled.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure.
This mess.
Well, maybe they'll wake up and see the light. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, John, I'll talk to you. Call me tomorrow, will you?
Yeah, I will. Have a good evening and good night to everybody.
Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. That was Johnny Larnard. What a guest, huh, Kyle?
Oh, yeah, every time.
Every time, boy, he knocks it out of the park. Our listeners like him because he's got something real to say.
Yeah, the real deal.
The real deal. That's why we call it the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. Well, tee up our last song, would you?
Yep.
Okay, we're back. We're at the end of the road here. I had a good day. Did I tell you I had lunch with the Attorney General of the state of Arizona?
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up so you can tell your listeners.
Yeah, and today, and we went to lunch, and I met him several weeks ago, and I knew who he was, but we got to be more friends now, and he's coming on the show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's going.
People are going to have to tune into that one.
Yeah, it'll be in a week or two.
Awesome.
He's going to listen to the shows, come on the show. He's heard about it. And then I'd like to get him and Judge Lance Jacobs, who was on about a month or two ago.
Dynamic duo there.
Yeah, the dynamic duo. Get them in here, and then they can talk about, legal issues, but also about the First Amendment in the Constitution, where these people are trying to take these names away, and that's a clear violation of free speech, as he said.
Yeah, well, no one better to ask than them.
Yeah, I mean, they're the experts.
Yeah.
I'm not me, but that's what they said, and it's a clear violation of free speech by telling people we got to take these names away. I mean, it's just not what the First Amendment was meant to be. In closing, I always want to thank all of our people in the armed services here and abroad for protecting our great country. I'm here, the ambassador's here to tell the truth and deliver the message. And remember, if we are not offended by the names that honor Native Americans, then why in the hell should you be? So consider buying, support our sponsors, buy Grace Propane, Swisher Air if you have any commercial air conditioners needs. Try to find a low-income Native American family, and we'll hook them up with up to a $10,000 deal at no cost. And also consider being a sponsor on The Real Deal. We need sponsors to keep this show going. If you like what you hear, consider being it. We don't need millions. We don't need hundreds of thousands, but we do need sponsors. And you can get a hold of me at info@yellowhorse.us, yellowhorse.us, or 602-540-3000 for advertising on The Real Deal. So with that being said, Kyle, why don't you just tell us why the ambassador's here?
To kick ass and save names, Ambassador.
That's why we're number one.
Thank you for listening to The Real Deal. Tune in to The Real Deal with the Ambassador and special guest hosts every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and on demand 24/7 right here on Star Worldwide Networks.